All right. So I just usually do 5 seconds of silence to bring us in, and then I'll take it up. Shit. I said, oh, shit. Man, that's the only intro I feel like I can handle right now with the news this weekend. And this is legit. I'm not messing around with hearing that Lance Reddick is passed. That's really all I can go to, man. That's really the only thing that really encapsulates my feelings, other than trying to do my best Lance Reddick impersonation. This is bullshit. This is bullshit.
I was gonna say the shit guy. That wasn't Lance Reddick.
That wasn't Lance Reddick. I did know that.
That wasn't Lance Reddick.
I did know that. I know. Greg's like, oh shit, I gotta save my white friend. Oh god, he's doing that.
Yeah,
He's doing the mix-up.
I had to jump in there for you. You're welcome.
I know. McNulty, get in my office. You gotta get that to the back part of your mouth going on there with it. Yes, McNulty. What are you doing?
And that voice was all natural. Like it's really worth pointing that out. Like dude just woke up. I would love it if he sounded like that pre-puberty.
I'm sure he did. He's
yeah,
like
right.
You.
He was like 2, right?
Yeah, he came out, mother. Right. Where is my peanut butter sandwich? I demand it right now. You know, there's that full enunciation.
Right.
On a note, if you haven't seen it, it was the first watch The Wire, because everything you like on television now is based on The Wire. All your Breaking Bads and anything else, even Game of Thrones to a certain extent, but just those ideas of just that kind of legacy show that you watch week to week and everything is interconnected with these really heavy acting performances goes back to The Wire. So you have that. You have him sort of at the pinnacle there. If you haven't seen him, he has a very small part in American Horror Story season 3, I think it is, or 4. It's Coven. It's the one where they're in the witch's coven, and Angela Bassett summons him as Baba Legba. So which is just a fun role for him. He's clearly having a lot of fun with it, right? He got to, I don't know how good, Greg, you can tell me how good his patois is really when
it's not.
It's not. Okay. You're like, he tried.
He tried. He tried. Yeah, he tried.
But I liked his Baba Legba. Like it creeped me out a little bit.
It's Papa Legba.
Oh, Papa. I'm sorry. I apologize.
All right.
Not my culture. I'm doing my best, and of course, taking it from pop culture, but still try my best to work on in there. There you go. You saved me twice today, Greg. Twice.
That's why I'm here.
I owe you two, but it is
not all heroes wear capes.
Yes, it is I being saved again, the damsel in distress, saved by my strapping man, the Star Child. That is the one, the only Gregory Descents. Welcome to it, into the steam tunnels. How you doing today?
Oh, feeling good, man. Got a little proper workout today. I was splitting wood, so I feel like a beast.
Oh man,
beast movements happening.
That's it. Did you have pictures of yourself shirtless and all oiled up as you were doing that?
I thought about it, but then I was like, yo, I'm nasty.
I
can't do this right now. I'm gonna get man goo on the phone. It's not gonna happen.
You gotta have Kim take the pictures for you. Come on now.
Dad. She's out doing girl things. She's happy.
All right. Well, good. Well, always keep Miss Kim happy. This we know. But we are joined today by a special guest bringing it in. RaShaun is out. He's actually, I think he's ducking Vin Diesel because I'm pretty sure he's convinced that Vin has finally tracked him down to his home. So he stays out. No, he's out having a good time, and he'll be back by the time this episode goes out, but he'll have some fun in the sun. We won't go too much into his downtime, but he is out enjoying himself, recharging his batteries, and we are loving it. And we wish him nothing but the best. And I hope he's, as we speak, imbibing in some serious alcohol right about now, or something like that. And just enjoying it as we're starting to break into spring here. But I brought my friend with me, Jack. Jack is here. We're from his own podcast, Secret Police, which is a fantastic listen if you ever want to get into some serious history and really understand how freaky totalitarianism can get and just how scary life can be under the boot and the heel of jack-booted thugs. Well, no pun intended. This is my man, Jack. How you doing? Welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, we are so happy. I think I'm going somewhere between comrade or the commissar, as you know, as that idea. trying to give you your steam gentleman nickname. What you got a preference for one over the other?
I thought Jackboot was pretty funny.
Jackboot. As often is the case, we stumble over these things, right? We're not even anticipating these things, folks. This show is done live. It's unscripted. It's wild. Jack puts a ton of work into his podcast. He'll do 2 hours. He'll do 2 hours plus. He's got the whole thing scripted out. So and researched. He is the man with the plan and knows what he's talking about. But tell the listeners a little bit about your show and what brought you to us and how we all got hooked up here.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my show is basically about the history and methods of the world's most brutal secret police forces. However, I just started it about almost a year ago. It'll be a year on April 1st. And I'm elbow deep in this Soviet secret policing thing because, well, Russia has a very long history of secret police dating all the way back to Ivan the Terrible. So it's been like, I've been in completely inundated with this like 400 years plus worth of secret policing. And I don't know, it's funny. I thought of the idea for the show reading the Dictator's Handbook. I don't know if either of you guys have ever read that. Like it's by Alistair Smith, and I can't remember the guy's first name, but his last name is I think De Mesquita, I think. But I thought of it, and it's one of those things where I got on Spotify and I was like, let's make sure nobody else has a show about this, because that seems highly likely. It's like one of those topics that seems like secret police always seem to come up when you talk about authoritarianism, but it's a surprisingly underappreciated topic, and there wasn't anything like that before. So I thought, well, I had one of those rare moments where you kind of have a green light flash in your mind, and I suppose I should continue.
Yeah, you do your best with it. Yeah.
And to do the authors justice, it's Bruce Bueno de Mesquita and Alistair Smith. I happen to have it right here on my desk, so that was convenient.
Oh, beautiful.
So yeah. Anyway, after this Russia series, which at first I thought was going to be maybe like 6 or 7 parts, has ballooned. I guess ballooning is not the right word, but I'm at 8. I'm at 8 so far, and it's going to be more. After that, I think we are going to travel over to Haiti, because it is important to me that this show isn't so Eurocentric, and I would like to do. We were talking off air, but I Greg, jump in if you want. We were talking about the Tonton Macoute before we started recording, and I think it's important to me to talk about them, and then I think after that we're going to head over to Iran to talk about the Savak, and then after that I think we're going to make our way back over to Europe, to Germany. Also no shortage of secret police.
Yeah.
You can go by the decade in Germany.
Yeah, you can. But no, it's really like I'm excited because it's a very niche topic, but it's also so broad. One of them that I'm really looking forward into going into is the Venetian secret police, which was the Council of 10 from like the 14th century. Really, really like kind of brutal stuff there as well. But Venice was very unique in that usually secret police derive from authoritarians, but Venice was a republic.
Right.
And they were part of, like, their government wasn't necessarily wasn't a dictatorship.
Was the Council of 10 part of the idea of the Star Chamber, or am I conflating that with something else? The idea of like a whole trial that could be held in your absence without, or, by the time you showed up, you'd already been pronounced guilty.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, that's all right. I just,
and neither am I.
When you mentioned that, that's one of those things. And of course, me connecting everything the way I am, there was a movie in the 80s called The Star Chamber, which was about the idea of U.S. judges doing the same thing of getting together basically on the weekends and like, let's hang this motherfucker. And just sitting around, having the whole trial in absentia with that. So anyway, I might be conflating it. So what you're telling us, Jack, though, is it's a family show. It's kind of one of those ones.
Yeah, it's totally. Yeah. Kids, your kids can listen to it before bed.
No, I think it's something that, people should look at, because it's not so much that secret police exists, but it's what it represents in that society at that time.
Right.
And what it says about, especially what it says about the part of their citizenship that support them. Like, let's be honest, where every one of these groups, there's been a portion of their society that supports them, because let's be honest, they are maintaining some sort of class distinction, and you're probably just not on the right side of it. That's why you really hate these guys, whereas a lot of other people saw them as their first line of defense. So I think it really is an important thing to shine the light on.
I think so. And I will say, Jack, I'm not surprised that you started on one thing and then the subject matter just kept opening and opening. I'm a little more familiar with Germany just because of my own background and history, being Jewish, as well as being a German Jew. And I'll say that, like, when it came to the fashion and the style, the Germans, they had it. They had it all going for them. But when it came to getting that shit down to a science, the Russians knew what they were doing. The Russians have been so good, as you pointed out, for so long, going back to the first Tsar, right? Yeah. At a time when there's no electronic surveillance, there's none of the things that we take into account, and that we would think, would be just so necessary for maintaining a state like this.
Yeah, that's what's amazing, is the fact that you can still project fear across a vast landmass.
Well, the idea is always, you're not a real, dictator, boss, whatever, until you have your Praetorian Guard, until you have, your elite force. Napoleon had his, like everyone, you don't really feel like you're the king shit until you've got your death squad. Until are you really pimping if you don't have a death squad?
Do you even death squad,
you
bro?
Even have a death squad, right? You ain't shit.
Yeah.
Right. You over here like, Drake. Like, no. Like, you ain't got no motherfucker. You got no death squad. Fuck out of here.
So
Josh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, so Josh, how did we connect?
Oh, well, we connected thankfully through TimeSuck, and the shout out that we got from Dan Cummins, our mutual favorite podcaster here, who was kind enough to do that. And then Jack reached out to me as part of that interconnection, and that let me know about his podcast, and, got us into this whole world out there, right? This whole ecosystem that's out there of a bunch of us grinding, trying to have some fun, trying to make it, and trying to maybe sell some dick pills if we're really lucky,
Woo!
Dick pills, mattresses,
sell
pre-made
dick pills to the death squad,
yeah. Shit, man, this is capitalism, baby. Well, whatever the market will bear,
whatever the market needs.
But being that we are the show of pop culture and social commentary, and certainly talking about the secret police falls well into that social commentary end of things. When I invited Jack on, I knew from when we were talking early on, and he talks about it, and when you talk about it, I'm pretty sure in your first episode, that you had a film influence on this, something that kind of piqued your interest and kind of got you into it. So I'm inviting you on here, and I'm going to let you step up to the plate first and get your 10 minutes in here, and talking to us. Step on up, Jack. Tell us a little bit about the end of pop culture that linked you in, that kind of hooked you in to the Death Squads, no less. But get a move on before the Germans get here.
Sure. So there were a lot of different influences that led me to this point, but for the pop cultural end, definitely I think was the film The Death of Stalin. And I guess my sort of intro was I saw an ad for The Death of Stalin on YouTube, of course, and I thought, okay, that looks funny. Like I knew who Stalin was. Vyacheslav Molotov, just like kind of the usual cast of characters, and Khrushchev, of course. And I went and saw the movie with my wife at for those of you who aren't familiar with the Minneapolis area, we went and saw it at this like little monoplex independent theater called I want to make sure I get this. I want to make sure the Uptown Theater. There we go. Give them a shout out, because they are just now reopening. So we went and saw it there. I thought it was hilarious, but
it really is.
Yeah, it is a funny movie. I mean, they do take a lot of liberties with things. I mean, I've definitely seen plenty of commentary out there about people who thought that maybe kind of the angle that they took on history was quote unquote dangerous, whatever that means. But it's satire. I think you have to go into it knowing that. I mean, it's kind of like going in and watching Borat for the first time, right? Like you can't take it too seriously. Now, what really struck me about that movie was this was a period of history, a period of Soviet history that I wasn't familiar with. Like, what did happen after Stalin died? Because he was so powerful. He had the whole entire country in his grasp, basically. And what I found fascinating, or the person that really got my attention, was Beria, somebody that I had never heard of before, that I felt like I should have known more about before going into the movie. Like most people have heard of like Heinrich Himmler, but I don't think the same subsect of people necessarily would be able to tell you who Beria was. And Beria was this like very particular, like maybe once in a century kind of brand of bastard that was not only he was the head of the NKVD, which was Stalin's secret police, but he was also like a pedophile and just a mass murderer of his own, like his like his master Stalin. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's a little depicted in the film, but Beria had this habit of being driven around Moscow late at night, and he would point out girls that he'd want to take back to his place, which is now the Moroccan embassy. No, some country in Africa. I can't remember, but it's now the embassy, some embassy in Moscow. And it used to be Beria's private residence.
I thought you said Moroccan, or I thought you said Moroccan in your episode. I remember you were talking about the excavation.
From there. And so it's in the episode too. They had to replace some water pipes, I think in like 1998 or 95, some far past when Beria had lived here, and they unearthed a bunch of skeletons. I think five individual remains of these women who presumably were raped and then killed by Beria, found in his former residence there. Now that's not depicted in the film, but it is depicted that it's implied that he is a rapist. There's a scene where somebody very young gets into his car and he kind of gives them a look and then they drive off. And I think you're supposed to infer from that he's doing disgusting things. And yeah, and I just like kind of walked away from that movie. I was definitely entertained by it because yes, it is very funny, but I also was like, I have to know more about this guy because this is just like, this guy's just crazy. And then when I found out, when you think about that kind of person having that kind of power, it really makes you kind of step back and put that into sort of an American context, which I think in one of my episodes I said, imagine that there's one agency that's basically the CIA, FBI, the Marshals, and the NSA combined. And now imagine that organization is run by a mass murderer pedophile. I mean, that's basically the kind of power that you're talking about. It run by that kind of personality. And that was just very poignant to me, that kind of character. And Barry is played very well by Simon Russell Beale, who is a British actor. The other thing that kind of struck me about that movie, which I'm sure we'll also talk about Chernobyl, but The Death of Stalin predates Chernobyl by 2 years, I think. That movie was banned in Russia completely for being like Western propaganda.
Wow.
And I was kind of not surprised.
Not at all surprised.
But also disappointed. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that Russians haven't seen that movie, but the one Russian person that I know quite well, when it came up in conversation, this was before the war too. When this came up in conversation about that film, I had mentioned it in passing, and he kind of scoffed at it, and I was aware that it was banned, and I mentioned that, and I honestly don't remember what he said. I don't even want to try because I don't want to like misquote him, but I got the impression that he didn't appreciate it. But I had to make the point, like, look, for me, this movie got me more interested in Soviet history as sort of an entry point. And we have, I'd say, as an American and a Russian, have more cultivated our relation, a friendship, perhaps, not necessarily based on any sort of history between the US and Russia that's hostile, but in my curiosity of knowing more about his country, and he's definitely curious about knowing more of mine. So maybe it has served its purpose in that way. Maybe you're supposed to come away from it with a curiosity of wanting to learn more about Russia and the Soviet Union, rather than just taking what that movie says at face value. Because of course there are things in that film that are inaccurate. I mean, one tiny detail is that maybe it's not so small, but they constantly refer to the secret police in that movie as the NKVD, which by that point in 1953, it was technically the MVD. So whatever, but maybe
it's trash.
Yeah, right. That makes it trash. No, but I think
it's trash.
I think with Russia banning certain Western films that portray them in a certain way, my impression is that there's definitely a lot of reverence for Stalin still in Russia, and I think you have to make something that's like borderline masturbatory about him or about the Great Patriotic War for it to even be acceptable. Unfortunately, maybe someday somebody will produce a series about a series like a Netflix series about Stalin, and maybe it's something that both American and Russian audiences can enjoy in different ways. Who knows?
Well,
yeah, I think that would be unintentionally humorous too, in a way.
Yeah, it probably would be.
It really, because and we saw it so much with Donald Trump, but the personality of a lot of these men is like there is a kind of absurd pettiness to the way they behave and how they want the world to see them and the image that they cultivate. So it does end up being unintentionally hilarious. Tragic, because obviously these motherfuckers killed a lot of people and, you know, brought their country to its knees while they're over here patting themselves on the back for the illusion they've created. But the pettiness is just, I'm sorry, it will make you laugh.
Yeah.
I think it's impressive, and I think it's you know, to me it speaks to the power of satire, the power of pop culture, right? Here it was, this was your entry point into a particularly dark period of history. You know, and it's somewhat tragic in some ways, because here you are and you're talking about it too, and I, you know, to someone who's from Russia, and because of just the, I don't know, the country's DNA almost, right? It's going to be rejected. But yeah, it's talking about some really dark shit, and also trying to, you know, inject just that little bit of levity into it, maybe just to make it possible. And also the absurdity of it all, right? I've seen it, and yeah, it really was that kind of feeling of what the hell do we do now, right? So under the yoke 24/7, all these years of this man, who does what now? Like, who wants to do anything right now? Because we've all had our lives so molded by this one personality, right? The entire country has. And then we are the inner circle of this man and of that cult of personality. Like, now what do we do? There was that feeling.
It's a very human thing, I think, to lose somebody and to not know what happens next. And it's not just necessarily in authoritarian governments, but even in family. It's like, I mean, for example, I don't know, I mean, in my family, like we before my grandmother passed, she was like, you know, the family matriarch for sure. Everybody looked up to her. She was always communicating with everybody. And then when she passed, I mean, it's not like the kind of same, it's not an equivalent paralysis, but it is kind of an interesting thought to think of. Like, so now, you know, my mom and her siblings were like, well, what the hell do we do now?
I think it makes a lot of sense. There's the microcosm, macrocosm, right? You know, this idea. And even Stalin himself, right? Like during the war, of course, because we had to sort of make peace with the fact that we had made a deal with the literal devil, you know, wasn't quite as obvious at this point, but you know, even that was referred to it, he always referred to him as Uncle Joe, right? It was you know, just this really, you know, jovial kind of spirit. He had the big bushy mustache, you know, he didn't have the little Hitler mustache, right? Come on, you know, his looked more reasonable, right? It was like, well, that's what a mustache should look like, not that little fucking thing he had underneath his nose.
Yeah,
he's
and
just Uncle Joe.
People still rock the Stalin, right?
Right.
Nobody rocks the Hitler except for Michael Jordan, but we won't go there.
I mean, genetics aside, right? I mean, what can you do, right?
What are you doing? That's the Hitler. What are you doing?
What are you doing? That's it. Well, yeah, there are a couple there, and the cat that looks suspiciously like Hitler. Oh yeah. Poor cat, but you know, I thought it was really fascinating when I listened to that episode, and coming up to take my time a little bit, it's interesting because your entry point to this was a film of satire, and my entry point was a more serious subject matter. I'm going to get to it in a moment. Since we are here and we're talking about our favorite things, we're hitting on all the pop culture references. Let me just take that moment. Hopefully for the STEAM people out there listening, you'll take that time to Google some of these titles. Since we're on the Secret Police, do check out the movie The Lives of Others. That's really good. It's about the Stasi in East Germany, and a good watch. Just a very interesting thing. Much about similar ideas, like Greg was talking about, just sort of how it works into the culture and how it works into the status. And it's about a Stasi officer who's spying on, you know, some citizens of East Germany. He's a playwright. I love the very premise actually that sets up in the first minute, which is that the playwright is writing very patriotic plays Uh, and one of his superior is this, his superior is telling him the Stasi to investigate him. He's like, he's too patriotic. I don't trust this motherfucker. Like, I don't like him. Really, everybody wants to sleep with his wife, but that's just how that goes. And not unsurprising. He's like, well, maybe if I throw him in jail, I got a chance. I don't know. But I did just love that as an entry. He's like, no, he's too patriotic. Right? All these things are too on point. I don't trust him. Check him out. But it's a really nice, nice entryway into that idea. I will say, if you want an individual performance, certainly gets referenced quite a bit here in the US, of course, but it's 1984, George Orwell. But in the film version, you have Richard Burton, and just the performance he gives of the state minister, of just that idea. He's basically the head of the secret police, and just the speeches he gives and just the way he's doing the interrogation, truly chilling, but he really got it. Like, he really understood it. And there's just that way that he talks about how well he's inculcated the state into his heart. He can say 2 + 2 is 3 and believe it, right? It's not just reciting. It's not just resuscitating it. It's just knowing it in your heart, right? It's just knowing it. But really, when it comes down to, go ahead.
I mean, I was going to say, because we did an episode on 1984, and my thing is always that I think more of the point is that, not that you actually believe it, but that that you had better say it. And yes. Either one will do. Either one will do. Because if you desire. If you actually believe it, that makes you a whole different animal. But if you know for a fact that it's bullshit, but you had better say it anyway, for proper propaganda reasons, or because you understand what the party symbolizes and what you have to do within the party, either one, what it is that you're doing. That this position you're taking is malicious. And that's where the party needs to be.
That's where, that's where you better be. So
that's where you better be. I know that I know you're a party man.
I always thought the bad math thing was so funny. Like, I understand the point that George Orwell was trying to convey by 2 + 2 equals, I think 2 + 2 equals 5. Yeah. But then, like, from a practical standpoint too, it's like, okay, if you're a dictator trying to get people to believe that, but you also have to, like, build machines and have an army, you're not going to get very far without basic math.
Of course not.
Witnessing a little
whenever
in real time.
Whenever I'm ruminating on American racism, because it's fun, and whenever I'm giving it a thought, I always think about, like, again, the pettiness, but also the fact that you believe that these people are beneath you and are primates, and yet you have signs up everywhere. Signs meaning they can read. they can read. Like, why are you blocking? Yeah, why are you blocking them from the library? Why would these subhuman people that you believe they are, why would they have use for a library? Like, why are you, like hatred, oppression, it's inconsistent.
Hitler, I always like to say Hitler loved dogs, right? That's always
right.
In fact, Shotzi. But the film I wanted to focus on was one called The Inner Circle, and it's a lesser known one. I won't go full obscure on it, but it's a little more it's a little more obscure. Just trying to look at it. It was 1991 when it came out, so it's a little hard to find. I'm not even sure if it's streaming anywhere. But it was really an influential film. And interestingly enough, my father showed it to me, and he really wanted me to watch it. I did, and I enjoyed it. Like with Jack, it interestingly enough introduced me to Berrien and who he was. He's played. There you go. It was a little before I knew you. I was still a young lad, probably in my 20s when I first saw it. Played by Bob Hoskins, of all people, and he brings the most, he really, as you say, you get that he's such a sleaze. You get the idea of everything. I don't know if they necessarily zeroed in on pedophilia, but definitely on on the fact that he was victimizing women. It seemed to be of all ages, because the story, and here's what really caught me about the whole thing. The story is the story of Stalin's projectionist. Okay, he's a NKVD KGB officer, somewhere in there that he said, and he's played by it's a Tom Hulse. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name. Now he also
Hulse, but yeah,
Hulse might be Hulse. He played Mozart in the movie Amadeus, right, which is probably his most famous role, and he nails that laugh. Every time you hear that laugh, you just know that oh God, Salieri, who, again, if we're talking about realism, I guess they got along very well. But he plays the role of this KGB officer, and he's the projectionist. Now, what it brings to it is the realism. Stalin loved American cinema. Absolutely.
Yeah, he loved Westerns.
Loved Westerns. Loved all of it. So he was definitely being called in as his projectionist, kind of a big deal, right? He loves watching these movies all through the war and even after the war, but he saw the power of cinema. There were movies that were produced that he made sure were produced about him that are completely factually inaccurate, by the way, that show him working hand in hand with Lenin, hand in glove, taking everything when the Great Revolution comes. That's one famous one. Doesn't happen, of course, right, mind you, but they have this idea to make sure to build up this image, and he understood what he was doing with cinema, with pop culture, right? That he could really emblazon this image in the people's mind, that he was the one picked by Lenin to lead the Soviet Union, right? To make this great Soviet empire, this great communist empire that needed to be made. Also later post-war, I'm digressing a little bit, but it kind of plays back to our point. He makes sure there's an actor who played Stalin on a regular basis, plays him in this earlier film that I'm telling you about, that shows him landing on a landing strip and then touring Berlin really just after it's fallen, which of course absolutely never happened.
Never happened. And he hated, he was afraid of flying.
Yes.
Which is why he took an armored train everywhere. And his train car is in Gory, Georgia, if you want to see it, I guess.
Hey, people, we don't kink shame. There's tourists out there of all kinds, I guess.
I mean, I would totally, that's kind of on my bucket list, actually. I'd love to go see that thing.
There you go. I mean, I get it.
It must be a sight
to it.
No, it's
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's interesting you mentioned that he recognized the power of cinema, because there's a film called Ivan the Terrible from 1945, which is about Ivan.
Right.
But this is just speculation on my point. Since it was made in 1945, and I think it was made like just before, like maybe it was released like maybe the same month as the end of the war, or maybe just after. But if you watch the movie, like I've watched about half of it. It's very different. It's a Russian film. It's all in Russian. It's black and white. I mean, I don't have a problem with black and white films, but it's just like, it's not something you can just sit down and watch for entertainment. But I got the impression that they are really talking about Stalin in that film, more so than they're talking about Ivan. And Stalin did have a sort of reverence for Ivan the Terrible as well.
That's not surprised. Yeah, no, well, I mean, it comes from that same kind of mold. But yeah, the reason I'm definitely encouraging people to go out and watch this film is it is such an interesting confluence of all of those things. It really does give you a good sense of history. It gives you a good sense of how all this shit works. That there's a scene in it that still stands out in my mind where the film breaks while they're watching it, and the main character is so earnest. Like it opens with him like, I love Comrade Stalin. I love Comrade, he like has pictures up above his head, and he's so truly devoted to the communist cause. And when he gets a chance to be this projectionist, it is like he's being asked to be a projectionist for a rock star, right? It is just, he's a total fanboy and he's totally geeking out, but he's also a nerd for these projectors, and he's a nerd, like this is all what he does. So there's a bit where a spring breaks on it. Like the film breaks and something happens. He says, "Oh, come," and it's like, I have this, and he breaks out, and he's like, "Is it coming on this model? This one spring breaks sometimes. It happens, and he's like, just fix it. I'll have it back up in 2 minutes." And Stalin stands up in it, right? And this is where you also get to see Hoskins playing Beria. He's like, Stalin's going, see, he's like, this, is like, man in the brusque and the film break. He's like talking about like just the total atrocity this would be to the people. And then he's turning on some of his staff members, right? Of like, who caused this, right? Who caused this one part to be manufactured so? And if because of that, the entire system is being undermined by you. And Beria is seeing it, and he's jumping on it like a fucking ghoul, right? You can see he's aroused, and that does include sexually. Like, he is just, Hoskins does such a good job of just like, oh, I got one, right? Like, I'm gonna get to purge. I'm gonna get to purge a motherfucker right here. Like, this is gonna happen. And he's so into it. And you see the realization from this main character of, oh my God, where am I? Like, this is so bizarre. Right. All I was trying to do was fix the film. Right. And I just got a guy killed and that's what happens. Right. And it's this descent into this nightmare of being in this inner circle because Stalin likes him and he keeps him around. Beria at one point, I'll give the trigger warnings here, but at one point they're on the train traveling around. He's got to travel with him, and he gets the main character gets let me just see who's his wife's name is in the film. It's Lolita Davidovich playing his wife Anastasia.
I loved
he's Yvonne, she's Anastasia, she's great. But Hoskins starts plying her with liquor and rapes her, right? Because that's the character he's playing. He's playing Beria, who's just a sexual predator on every level. But you just see just how this whole thing, this earnest guy, right, who really believes in all of this and really wants to be just a good party member and a good party state and just show some movies, for fuck's sake, is so drawn in and can't get out. It's impossible for him, right? It's just utterly impossible for him to get out. And how it just was I thought, so subtle in some ways and so unsubtle in others, but showed that confluence. And it's very interesting to me, Stalin's love of films like that, and B, he's not the only dictator that we know like that, right? Yep. Kim Jong-un, the predecessor, loved American cinema and loved making his own propaganda films. Like, I've seen them. Yeah, they're wild. If you ever get a small side note, another Netflix documentary called Crossing the Line shows you some really good stuff from that. So do recommend it. Might be a little hard to find, but really recommend going out and checking out The Inner Circle. That's definitely my recommendation of the week. Check it all out.
Here's something interesting. It's on Amazon.
Okay.
For like DVD and VHS, if you're old enough to remember VHS.
We are.
Which I am too. But then what's interesting is it says like, it looks like you can stream it, and maybe it's just me. It says the video is currently unavailable to watch in your location. And that's on Amazon. So I'm wondering if you have a VPN, if you can get it that way.
Oh, Jack going into all the dark web stuff. Easy there, hacker.
I don't know why it wouldn't be available in the United States.
All right. I mean, we're not upset about it.
Yeah, but it works on out. But
I'm more curious, to be honest, to see Bob Hoskins play an actual bad guy. Like, the worst I've ever seen Bob Hoskins was Smee in Hook. So this would be like a massive jump for me. I'll probably check it out.
He does such a freaky job, dude. Like, there's something about it. I mean, maybe I'm overhyping it, but I felt like it was kind of like the more subtle parts of Heath Ledger's Joker. Like, there was just that bit of it, maybe not all the over the top part, but more the subtle expressions and things like that. And just the smile he gets on his face when he's like, oh, I get to kill this guy right now. This is going to be awesome.
Ooh.
Bob Hoskins was also in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
He was. Yeah, he was. Again, the meanest I've ever seen him be.
Just beating up on tunes.
Right. Just a drunk private detective beating up on tunes.
That's it. God, he was a racist against tunes. Let's be honest here.
Actually, yes, he was anti-tune.
He was anti-tune, man.
He was anti-tune until he saw Jessica.
Well,
because your penis ain't racist.
Isn't that always the way?
Yeah, your dick ain't racist.
Can I please borrow that?
It's like, wait a second.
It's all yours, man. Put it on a t-shirt. Your penis ain't racist.
Greg, you're the t-shirt man. You get on that. Let's get on that right now. Without a doubt.
The penis ain't racist.
That's so funny you say that, because I feel like a lot of my guy friends were like, yeah, I watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that's when I discovered I like girls.
Perfectly understandable.
Understandable.
Perfectly understandable.
And odd that it's of course a cartoon. I know it's Kathleen Turner doing the voice, but okay.
But you don't care.
It's still a cartoon.
The animator didn't care, so
I would like to be a fly on the wall when they brought her in. It's like, here's who you're going to be playing, and flip around.
All right, seriously.
Wait, what? I was in Romancing the Stone. What are you talking about? Come on, God damn it.
And honestly, I think Saddam Hussein's favorite movie was The Godfather.
I believe you're correct on that.
Yeah, I think that he liked American movies too. And I think his favorite movie was The Godfather. And
I do believe he likes Scarface too. I might be making that up.
Of course he did.
But let's be honest. You could see it. Like, it's a possibility. Yeah, it's a possibility.
I wonder if Kim Jong-il ever watched Team America. I hope so.
I guarantee you he didn't.
I mean,
I'm sure you're right, but I really hope so.
But the thing that was amazing about that film was, I mean, clearly, again, satire, but it wasn't entirely, right? Like, they go to North Korea and he's putting on this whole cabaret show, and he would do that shit. Like, that's what's crazy, is it's a joke.
Well, yeah, because then you go back to
go ahead.
Then you go back to Saddam, and it's like he could have had a Scarface moment, and he did the exact opposite.
Yes. It was
like, I could have a showdown, one last stand with the troops coming after me, or I can get in this hole.
I'm gonna get in this hole.
I'm gonna get in this hole.
Maybe they'll go away after a while.
I'm gonna go hide in this hole.
All right. Well, with that, let's go over to the Star Child. Hear what he's got down there from let's hear the reports from Saddam Hussein's rat hole here from the Star Child. Let's see what's going on. What's he bringing to the table today?
Let me step on up on the corpses of Uday and Kusei and take a minute to get on this whole communist bandwagon that we're getting on here. It's kind of an amusing thing. How much they're just ended up being this really funny side of communism. It was just a ballet of the absurd at the end of the day. And sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. I think when you mention the Death of Stalin movie, it's like, yeah, it ends up being a kind of dramedy, because you have this idealism, this passion, this drive to change the world, and then on the other hand, you just have human fucking nature just slapping it around, and it's going to end up being comical, especially when it starts ending up in the hands of these petty, greedy little men. Not always you want to say little men, and a movie that actually ends up unintentionally doing it. It's not at all comedic, but Reds, it came out in 1981. It stars damn near everybody: Warren Beatty, Diane Keaton, Jack Nicholson, Gene Hackman, Paul Sorvino is in it. Maureen Stapleton plays Emma Goldman. Emma Goldman is a feminist and radical that people do not talk about enough. Emma Goldman was the shit. Okay. I absolutely love that woman. But it was a movie. It talks about Jack Reed, and he and Louise Bryant were in Russia for the Russian Revolution, and they were documenting everything that was happening, and you couldn't help it because it's absolutely tragic, especially the circumstances that they were facing. There was widespread poverty, like it's Russia. People are freezing to death, and we're talking about the birth of the labor movement in the United States, in Europe, and in Russia. And because of that, you kind of have this, powder keg, like it's ready to explode. Like the Industrial Revolution, it's having its effect on the people, and people are ready to blow. And they're seeing the wealth and they're seeing the opulence on the other side. And it's only a matter of time before something like the Russian Revolution was going to happen. And the movie, it does talk about the relationship between Jack Reed and Louise Bryant. There is a lot of that, but it's a three-hour movie. I think it's like 3 hours and 20 minutes. So it does make time for all of that relationship stuff and going to Russia at the same time. And I love how they show like Lenin and Zinoviev as these super intense, passionate revolutionaries who are as absurd in their own right too. And it shows how ridiculous, the labor movement and how cluelessly idealistic they were. It's like you'd never get the feeling like they ever get it. Emma Goldman understood that. You're not just killing the czar. You are toppling the social order of the entire Western world. It's not going to be okay. This is not going to go off without a hitch. A small group of men having all of the power in the country while everyone else mauls each other for resources. That's most of the world. That's most of the world. That's most of the world. Fuck sharing. What are you talking about? Like, no one is going to do that. And just the way these people barrel in idealistically now, that's when Jack Nicholson's character, he plays Eugene O'Neill, the poet. And he is constantly checking them. It is absolutely it's fantastic. He's always saying things like, which part of the left is the left today? And a bunch of, wealthy college graduates telling working class people what they should want, like just completely ripping into the left, and is honest. And that was exactly why Warren Beatty wanted to make this movie, because he was honest about everyone involved, including let's be honest, even the people who were anti-communist, they had their own brand of idealism that they were pushing, like, do you believe in God? Yeah, they did. It was their definition of idealism, but, they believed in the free market. They believed in private possession. They believed in Jesus Christ, so even for them, the way that they just come, barreling into the movie very clumsily and very judgmentally is perfect. They're questioning Louise Bryant, played by Diane Keaton, and they ask her if she believes in God, and she says, "Am I on trial for witchcraft?" That was absolutely brilliant. But again, it ends up being unintentionally absurd, and it's 3 hours and 20 minutes, but it's a really fascinating look into that period in history, and you do end up caring about their relationship. Like, this is, at the end of the day, a human drama. And so you really do care about what ends up happening to these people. And you have to understand also that these revolutions are a human drama. Once all the, proud words are done being spoken, you are affecting the lives of hundreds of millions of people with what you're about to do here. And it makes you understand that. Which brings us to Chernobyl, or everything wrong with communism. From top to bottom, there's a mini series on HBO. It's brilliantly directed. It actually, people talk more about the directing than they do about most other things in it, but it really makes you feel not only that this situation is absurd, but that this situation is just a quagmire that becomes more of a quagmire and gets just darker and deeper and more impossible, summed up by Gorbachev, who in the series says, "You made lava. You'll have to watch it to figure out why that happened." But obviously it is about Chernobyl. It is about the nuclear meltdown and all of the people that had everything to do with it. And you get to a point where you start to feel like the nuclear meltdown, which is happening. I believe they like come out with that in the first episode. Like it's not like a build up to the meltdown. Like, no, I think the meltdown happens like right in the beginning of the first episode. And you start to feel like the meltdown is less of an enemy than communism. Like it was almost easier to deal with a thermonuclear meltdown that has never happened on Earth than it is to deal with the Communist Party. Because the Communist Party, by this point in the early 80s, I mean, first of all, you're doing battle with Reagan's America, and you cannot afford to look bad. You cannot afford to let the world think that you're not as powerful as you are. You can't let the United States not think that you're as powerful as you are. And plus, you have the idealism, like the same way the United States or England doesn't want to let go of its traditions and its belief that it's crammed down the rest of the world's throat for the last few hundred years. Communist Russia doesn't want to either. Like this is a philosophy and this is a way of life that they have staked everything on, and just showing that it is a colossal failure is the last thing on the Bureau's mind right now. Like they are doing social and intellectual battle with the West, and they don't want to lose. And because of that, oh my God, it is so frustrating. It is so frustrating. And Stellan Skarsgård, who plays Boris Sherbina, has a meltdown in this series that absolutely sums up what it's like to deal with these people and the communist attempt at a cover-up. To this day, there are parts of the events that occurred that the Russian government still will not admit to. Everyone knows it to be a fact. Birds were falling out of the sky. People were getting radiation sickness from other parts of Europe. Like there was no question that this was happening unless you asked someone in the Russian government. So it's fantastic. And like I said, after a while, you will feel like the real enemy here is the state. The people who are charged with trying to solve this problem, I mean, you just have a new respect for them. You will have a new respect for them because they are absolutely just trying to be the voice of reason in this theater of the absurd. It's from top to bottom, everything wrong with communism.
Wow. Hoorah! USA, USA, USA. Wait, no.
Reagan's USA.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's the USA you and I grew up in, Greg. Come on, man. We saw the man on the television all the time. Well,
oh yeah, it was just all of these waspy guys masturbating to John Wayne movies.
I think Stalin did something similar.
Yeah, it was literally that was it. That was the whole thing.
It's a crossover point. I'll give Reagan this. I'll give him this. He loved movies too, of course, obviously being a movie star. And when they showed, he loved Back to the Future when they showed it to him, particularly the part where he says, "Who's president in 1985?" He says, "Ronald Reagan, the actor." he thought that was like it tickled him pink. I guess maybe he loved that he was still being mentioned, of course, being the president of the United States at that point. And that someone remembered his acting career. But
of course, that's the only part he liked.
Well,
and the part where we go back to the 50s where things were better.
There was that. Yeah. I mean, this was his movie. Let's face it, right? This was his.
Oh yeah, he was such a biff.
He was totally.
He was such a fucking biff. He was such a biff.
And he did quote in one of his State of the Unions, "But roads, where we're going, we don't need roads." He liked that a lot too. So there you go. All right, he got clearly.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. Well, we've learned a lot about world leaders. I'm putting that in big bunny quotes with their love of cinema. Right? There seems to be a common theme running through this episode.
It adds to the absurd.
It is interesting, and I think you're so true, right? Like at certain points, especially when things break down that much, and you have such a crux point, right? You have this is the world's worst nuclear disaster, still stands to that, from a power plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you have such a deep problem going on, that's on some level still going on. They just ended up throwing a giant concrete dome over it and calling it square, really.
Yeah, it keeps rearing its ugly head every now and then.
Yeah,
like you said, they threw a concrete dome on it, and then they just completed like another dome to fit over the first one. And they were gonna have I think it has like mechanical arms on the inside that they're gonna use to start actually trying to clean up the mess. But then of course when Ukraine was invaded, it's kind of like, it shows up again, like, they're gonna take over a Chernobyl power plant, which still has running reactors, I think. Obviously not that one.
There's certainly still other reactors, and then of course during the war they were the Russians were shooting at the reactors, and all I could think of to bring it back, of course, the way my mind works within pop culture, all I could think of was the movie Broken Arrow, when John Travolta's like, please do not shoot at the thermonuclear weapon.
Fortunately, it's impossible. Even if they like landed a direct hit, it's impossible for it to blow up like a.
Yes, that's yes, it's a good news. On the other hand, it still wouldn't feel great. Yeah, it still wouldn't feel great if I was living next to it. I'd be like, I'm gonna go visit my aunt for the weekend.
I'm moving.
I'm moving. Well, it definitely brings it up. Well, Jack, this has been a wild and fun romp through the world of secret police and backroom torture. It's in cinema. It's been fantastic. We're definitely loving it. We've enjoyed having you here. If you want to listen to Jack more, and Jack, tell me, say your name on air so I don't screw it up. Your last name.
Sure. Johannessen.
Jack Johannessen. All right. You're a transplant out to the Midwest there. So it almost sounds like, I know you started out in Seattle, right?
So I grew up here, then moved to Seattle, then came back.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's okay. So that's it. So that's why the name
you
sounds.
Never choose Minnesota. Minnesota chooses you.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go. Well, you're living in one of the places that I'm too scared to live in when it comes to snow and cold. By the way,
I don't blame you.
I'm a Boston guy. It's not exactly like I'm necessarily in the
you're not
Sun
doing
Belt.
much better.
Yeah,
No.
But this year it might as well have been. Jesus, I mean,
I'm so tired of winter. I've shoveled so much snow this year.
Oh, I 100% believe it. Yeah, that's just always what I think of. I think of that, and I think of people saying, "Man alive, oh my, oh gosh."
I gotta rewatch. Oh gosh, what's this? It's Steve Buscemi. Fargo. Yeah.
Great he's movie. Funny looking.
Yeah. And
I mean,
because he played Khrushchev in The Death of Stalin.
Actually, he did,
which I thought was an odd casting choice, but whatever.
Oh, they didn't give a shit about accents.
No,
they were like, whatever.
Steve Buscemi can do anything.
You're Khrushchev, go.
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi can 100% do anything. I 100% believe that. But if you want to listen to Jack, his podcast is Secret Police, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to check him out. Give him a few downloads. The man knows his stuff. He knows his shit top to bottom and does his research, does a wonderful job. I really enjoy listening to it. Taught me a lot. On a subject I've had some tangential interest in, so it's been really good to deepen my understanding. For both of us, stop on over to Apple Podcasts, give us a rate and review, help us climb the charts so we can continue to bring forth the overarching philosophy to make sure the people unite and seize the means of production through podcasting. In other words, just give us that chance to really get into to heavy duty capitalism, as I say, by dick pills or by pre-made meal plans or a therapy. Apparently, that's really popular in the podcasting sphere. Right?
If you've had some experience with secret police, that might actually be quite useful for you.
Yeah, without a doubt. Right. BetterHelp. We're here. We're out here. We are listening, and we're doing that. Check us out on the socials. We are Do You Even Steam Bro on Instagram, and we are the Steam Gentleman Podcast on Facebook. So follow us and check us out there. I'm gonna probably try and talk with Jack, see if we can get us a little more active on Twitter. Jack, your Secret Police Podcast on Instagram.
Yes.
Any other socials you need to push?
Yeah, I am. Oh, thank you. I am Hush Popo on Twitter because Secret Police was taken. I gotta see
I
if
like
can
that.
find the guy and convince him to hand it over.
Oh, all right.
No, so it's Hush_Popo.
Hush_Popo. All right.
Yeah.
Let us know. Maybe the guys from Boston can pay him a visit. You know how it is. Everyone's afraid of three guys from Boston.
There
So
you go.
that's it. I'll get
No
Greg,
one ever.
Greg and RaShaun and I can take off. I want to check it out. Greg Starchild, tell us what you got going on for the rest of the week here till we reconvene here in the nefarious steam tunnels and continue to push our agenda, pop culture and social commentary.
Well, I mean, we don't actually have any snow over here, so I'm just gonna split wood because yeah, we don't have any snow. We haven't really had any decent snow in Boston, so I'll split wood until, it feels bad.
It's been a very weird winter, and it's nothing to worry about unless you're one of those silly 90% of scientists who tell us we're all going to die. I mean, other than that, everything is fine. Okay, people, everything is fine. Only snowflakes, not the literal ones, believe in climate change. That's it. That's all there is to it. Jack, thank you for stopping in with us. What you got going on? What are you going to be doing for the rest of the week here before this episode drops?
Oh man, good question. What am I going to be doing? I have to record tonight. I have this horrible habit of being up super late recording. That's the only time I have to record though. Basically, just recording tonight, trying to get my 8th episode edited and put out there before Thursday the 23rd. About that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. That's basically it. I got nothing really that exciting going on over here except for just cranking away at the show.
Hey man, you're doing the Lord's work over there. We got our full support. Hopefully we'll have some cross listeners and some people who want to come on over and check you out. Like I say, he does a real great job, scripts it all out. Unlike the, barely controlled shit show of a Chernobyl meltdown that is this show. Jack's got his stuff on lockdown, man. He's got the script going. Right. He's got everything ready to go. I'm going to, as per usual, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to try and keep my kids alive. Always very important. Top of the thing. Try and keep sane in that regard. We're getting a little closer there. My house has got some siding going up on it today. Yay, good time. So bit by bit, getting closer and step by step. But yes, please head on over, give us those rate and reviews, check us out on the socials, listen to us, tell a friend, help get this Steam cloud built up, man. Steam is what powers the world. That's what's going on here. So make sure you can help us push this nefarious pop culture and social commentary agenda of the Steam gentlemen. Until next time, it is your friend Josh, the Birdman, telling you to keep your heat up and keep your head of steam on.